You know that feeling when your whole life shifts in a single sentence. Mine came on a rainy Tuesday morning in my father's office, with my mother standing behind him like a silent executioner. "Evan," my father said, voice cold, "you're no longer part of this company or this family's business. It's time you grew up on your own." I laughed, thinking it was a joke. ID just spent the last 4 years running operations for his construction firm, working 14-hour days, saving contracts, even landing the biggest deal of the year. But the look in his eyes told me it wasn't a joke. It was exile. "What did I do?" I asked, my voice cracking. "You cost us money," my mother snapped. "You insisted on hiring people we didn't need. You have no business sense." We decided to move in a different direction. A different direction. That's what they called it when they replaced me with my cousin Tyler, a 24-year-old who could barely tie a tie, but somehow understood family loyalty. I remember walking out of that office, drenched by the storm, staring up at the company logo that bore our last name, Walker Construction Group. My name was gone from the email lists by the next morning. The cruelest part, I de-invested my own savings to help the company survive during the recession. They promised to pay me back. They never did. 2 months later, my parents stopped returning my calls. 6 months later, I saw them in the local paper smiling, shaking hands at a city event, praising their brilliant leadership and family unity. That's when something in me snapped. If they didn't want me as family, then fine. I built something they could never ignore. The first few months after my parents fired me were humiliating. You don't realize how much of your identity is tied to your last name until that name becomes a closed door. Every job interview ended the same way. "We admire your background, Evan, but given your family's reputation, we're concerned about conflict of interest." Translation: we don't want trouble with the Walkers. I burned through my savings paying rent, groceries, and debt I didn't even company expenses that were still in my name. My calls to my parents went unanswered. I left one final voicemail: "You win, I'm done trying." Then I stopped calling. I ended up working nights at a hardware store, stacking boxes for $12 an hour. Sometimes customers would recognize me. "Hey, aren't you one of the Walkers?" And I'd fake a smile and say, "Not anymore." But somewhere between the dust and fluorescent lights, something inside me changed. I started paying attention to the people around me: contractors, builders, small-time repair guys. They all complained about the same thing: big companies that overcharged and under-delivered. That's when an idea began to form. If my parents' business was built on reputation and ego, maybe I could build mine on something simpler. Trust. I spent nights sketching out a plan, using a beat-up notebook and YouTube tutorials. I learned accounting, marketing, logistics. Everything they said, I wasn't capable of. I borrowed $2,000 from an old college friend to buy tools and start a side hustle, fixing up small homes. My first job rebuilding a porch for a widow who said the Walkers turned her down because her project was too small to matter. When she hugged me and cried after seeing the finished work, I knew I was onto something. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like a failure. I felt dangerous. A year later, I barely recognized myself. The guy who once wore suits and signed contracts was now driving a rusty pickup with a toolbox in the back, but I was happier than I'd ever been. I called my business True Build Renovations. Nothing fancy, just me, one employee, my friend Josh, and a growing list of word-of-mouth clients who were tired of being ignored by big-name companies like Walker Construction. We didn't advertise. We didn't need to every porch, every kitchen, every deck, came with the same promise. We show up, we care. We finish what we start. Within 6 months, I had more requests than I could handle. People loved that I wasn't like those arrogant walkers. I didn't correct them, I just worked harder. Then the whispers began. One afternoon, Josh came in grinning, holding his phone. "Dude, look at this," he said, showing me a local business forum post. "Anyone else having issues with Walker Construction? They took my deposit and vanished for 3 weeks." At first, I brushed it off. But more posts started popping up. Missed deadlines, botched projects, unpaid workers. Even their biggest government contract was under review for compliance concerns. It was like watching a house of cards tremble. And for the first time, I didn't feel pity. I felt justice. But karma wasn't done. One night, I got an unexpected call from a private number. Evan, a nervous voice said, "It's Tyler, my cousin, the golden boy who replaced me." "What do you want?" I asked coldly. He hesitated. I think Uncle Mark's company is in trouble." "Big trouble. They're cutting corners, lying to clients. People are threatening lawsuits. I didn't know who else to call." The irony hit me like a punch. The same family that threw me away was now sinking, and their savior was on the other end of the line, barely holding in his laughter. I almost hung up on Tyler. But something in his voice, a rare trace of fear, stopped me. "Meet me," he said quietly. "Not at the office. Somewhere private." We met at a diner off Route 9, the kind of place where the coffee tastes like burnt rubber and the waitresses know everyone has secrets. Tyler looked different, pale, jittery, thinner than I remembered. He didn't waste time. "You were never supposed to be fired," he said, eyes darting around the room. I froze. "What are you talking about?" It was Mom's idea, not just hers. Uncle Mark and Aunt Linda made a deal with some investors. They needed you out because your name was on the original partnership contract. You own 20% of Walker Construction. They couldn't sell equity unless they got you to forfeit your stake. I felt the air leave my lungs. "You're saying they fired me to steal my shares?" Tyler nodded miserably. "They told me you'd signed a release form when you cleaned out your office. But I saw the paperwork. It was forged." For a moment, all I heard was the buzz of the diner lights. 4 years of loyalty, 14-hour days, everything I'd built, all erased by a forged signature and a lie. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. He sighed, rubbing his forehead. "Because they're desperate. The company is drowning. They owe the bank millions, and now the city is pulling contracts. They're looking for someone to blame. And if you come back into the picture, they'll make me the scapegoat again." I finished for him. Tyler nodded. "Exactly." I sat back, my coffee growing cold. I'd spent years rebuilding my life, healing from the betrayal, and now I had proof that they not only ruined me, but robbed me. Tyler leaned forward. "Look, Evan, you could go after them legally. Financially, hell, even publicly. You have every right." I looked out the window at the rain, the same kind that had fallen the day they fired me. Maybe this was fate coming full circle. "Tyler," I said slowly, a calm fire burning in my chest, "I'm not going after them." He blinked. "You're not?" I smiled faintly. "I'm going through them after that night." I didn't sleep much. I kept hearing Tyler's words echo in my head. "Forged signature, sold your shares. They needed you out. For years I told myself my parents made a mistake. That maybe I hadn't even been good enough. But now the truth was uglier. They hadn't even just abandoned me. They'd stolen from me, so I stopped thinking like their son and started thinking like their competition. Over the next few months, True Build grew faster than I could be imagined. I hired 2 crews, then 3. We picked up projects that Walker Construction had dropped or delayed, and clients loved how the little guys did better work for half the price. I never mentioned my last name. I didn't need to. Behind the scenes, I started digging property records, bank filings, city permits. Turns out my parents' empire was built on shaky ground. They overextended themselves, borrowed against future contracts that were now frozen, and still lived like royalty. The real gold mine came when a city procurement officer, one of my old contacts, called me late one night. "Evan," she whispered, "Walker Construction is about to lose their license. Fraud investigations, safety violations, the works." My heart pounded. What happens to their open bids? They'll be reissued next quarter. Why, just curious, I said. But inside, I was already planning every move. By the time spring rolled around, True Build wasn't a side business anymore. It was a rising contender, small but fierce, with loyal clients and a spotless reputation. The irony, the very name they had tried to erase, was now a ghost, chasing them in every contract, every rumor, every lost deal. Then one afternoon, as I was reviewing blueprints, Josh walked in, holding a letter from Walker Construction. He said, raising an eyebrow, "They're asking for a partnership." I stared at the envelope for a long time, feeling something cold and electric twist inside me. The trap was already working, and they didn't even know it. When I opened that letter, my hands didn't shake, not like they used to. It was printed on fancy stationery, with the Walker Construction logo in gold, like a relic from a past life. The tone was polite, almost desperate. "We believe collaboration could benefit both our companies. Let us discuss potential partnerships." Partnerships. The same people who called me dead weight now wanted to collaborate. I agreed to meet not at their office, but at a high-end restaurant downtown. I wanted neutral ground, somewhere public, somewhere they couldn't rewrite the story. When I walked in, my father was already there, suit-pressed, face weathered. My mother sat beside him wearing pearls, and the same tight smile she always used when she was about to lie. "Evan," she said sweetly, standing to hug me, "you look well." "I am," I said simply, taking my seat. "True Build is doing great." A flicker of irritation crossed her face. Before she masked it, my father cleared his throat. "We've been watching your company. Impressive growth. I suppose we taught you something after all." I smiled thinly. Maybe what not to do, he didn't eat like that. They launched into their pitch, something about merging resources, combining teams, helping each other thrive. I listened, sipping my water, pretending not to see the desperation beneath the rehearsed words. Finally, I asked, "Why me?" My father hesitated. My mother jumped in. "Because we're family, Evan. And family helps each other when times are tough." I almost left family. The word tasted like poison. So I said, leaning back, "You want my company to take on your contracts, fix your reputation, and save you from bankruptcy, but still call it a partnership." Her smile wavered. "That is not." "It is," I cut in. "You need me. Silence stretched between us. My father's jaw tightened, pride and panic gliding behind his eyes. For a brief, perfect second, I let them see it, that calm, quiet power they tried to crush. Then I smiled. I'll think about it as I left. My mother called after me. Evan, please. We can make this right. I didn't turn around because deep down, I already knew this wasn't about saving them. It was about watching them beg. A week after that dinner, I sent my parents a short email. Let us discuss partnership details. I'm open to exploring limited collaboration. I could almost feel the relief through their reply. My father agreed to give me access to their active projects for transparency, and my mother scheduled a meeting with their executive team. I wasn't going to blow up their company overnight. That would be even too easy. I was going to make them watch it rot from the inside, piece by piece. When I first walked into Walker Construction again, the building felt smaller. The marble floors, the glass walls, the fancy reception desk, all of it looked like an illusion trying to hide decay. Most of the employees I knew were gone. The new ones looked anxious, underpaid, exhausted. They smiled when I introduced myself as a consultant from True Build. No one realized I was the exiled son. I spent the next few weeks reviewing contracts, budgets, and safety reports. What I actually did was document every lie, every violation, every forged signature I found, including my own, the one that stole my shears. Quietly, I started redirecting their smaller clients to True Build. When the Walkers missed deadlines, 1D step in, finish the work faster, and win the client's trust. Publicly, I called it collaboration. Privately, it was conquest. And then came the best part: city contracts. I used my old connections to submit competing bids under True Build's name, offering lower prices and cleaner reputations. A city took notice. One Friday evening after everyone left, I stood in my father's office again, the same place where he told me, "You're no longer family here now." His desk was cluttered with overdue invoices and rejection letters. I looked around, taking in every detail, and whispered to the empty room, "You should be. He never taught me how this place works." The next week, the first big domino fell. Walker Construction lost their largest city contract. The same contract True Build won. When the news broke, it hit like a bomb. City terminates multi-million contract with Walker Construction over safety violations. True Build Renovation steps in as new lead contractor. Overnight, headlines spread across every local business page. Investors pulled out. The Walkers' clients vanished. Reporters started digging into their financial records. And through it all, my phone kept buzzing reporters. City officials, old colleagues, congratulating me for an incredible comeback story. My father called first. I let it ring. Then my mother texted Evan. "Please answer. We need to talk." So I met them again. This time not in a restaurant, but at their half-empty office, where the hum of failure filled the air. My father looked 10 years older. My mother's perfect hair was tied back hastily. "Did you know about this?" she asked. Voice trembling, I smiled politely. "Know about what? Don't play dumb." My father snapped. "You undercut our bid. You stole our clients. You planned this." I met his glare evenly. "You're accusing me of competing in an open market. I sentee that capitalism, Dad." For a moment, no one spoke. My mother's eyes filled with tears. "We made mistakes, Evan. But you're our son. Why would you do this to us?" I almost laughed. You forged my name, you stole my shears. You fired me like garbage, and now you want to talk about family." Her lips trembled. "We were trying to protect the company." I leaned forward, lowering my voice. "You were protecting yourselves. You chose greed over blood." My father slammed his fist on the desk. "You think you've won? You're nothing without our name." I stood buttoning my jacket. "Funny, I've done just fine without it." As I walked toward the door, I turned back one last time. "You told me I was no longer family here. I'm just keeping that promise." I left them sitting in silence, surrounded by the ruins of their empire. But what I didn't know then was that they weren't done yet. And neither was I. That I should be known they wouldn't go down quietly. My parents had spent their entire lives manipulating people. They weren't about to start telling the truth now. 2 weeks after our confrontation, I got a letter from a law firm. "Walker Construction Group hereby notifies True Build Renovations of a pending lawsuit for defamation, breach of contract, and corporate sabotage." Classic. They couldn't win in business, so they tried to bury me in court. At first, I wasn't worried. I had receipts, real ones. Documents, emails. Proof of their fraud. My lawyer said we'd crush them easily. But then things got worse. Clients started backing out of deals. Bank accounts froze. Rumors spread online that True Build was under investigation. And the worst part, someone had leaked confidential project data from my server's internal bids, payroll numbers, contracts. Only 3 people had access to that system. Me, my lawyer, and Josh. Josh, my friend. My first hire. The guy who worked beside me when I had nothing. When I called him, he didn't pick up. An hour later, I saw a photo online. Josh shaking hands with my father, outside the Walker Construction office. That was the moment the air left my lungs. They bought him. I felt fury boil through me, not because of the betrayal, but because it was a move straight out of my parents' playbook. Bribe, manipulate, control. But they'd forgotten something. I wasn't the naive kid they fired years ago. That night I went to my office, turned off the lights, and opened the folder labeled insurance. Inside were every document, every recording, every piece of evidence of what they'd done, including the forged signature that stole my 20%. If they wanted a war, I'd give them one. The difference was this time, the truth was on my side. And by the time it was over, they wouldn't just lose their company. They'd lose their name tag. The morning of the board meeting, I woke before sunrise. This wasn't going to be dramatic speeches or angry confrontations, no. I had learned from them the best way to win was quietly, decisively, and irreversibly. I arrived at Walker Construction early, carrying nothing but a slim folder of evidence. My lawyer followed, stern and silent. The boardroom smelled of polished wood and anxiety. My parents were already there, my father pacing, my mother fuming. Tyler hovering nervously. Evan, my father said. Attempting calm, we were expecting a discussion about partnership. I smiled. Oh, we'll discuss it just under new terms. I laid the folder on the table. Documents, emails, contracts, recordings. Every illegal move, every forged signature, every mismanaged account. Proof they had tried to steal from me their own child. I've already alerted the city, the bank, and your major clients. I said, unless you agree to step down immediately and surrender all equity, these documents go public. Their faces went pale. My mother's pearl seemed to glint like tiny warning lights. Tyler looked like he might faint. Evan, please. My father stammered. We can work something out. I shook my head. There is nothing to work out. You lost the trust of everyone. Your company is toxic. And I am moving forward alone. I had True Build ready to take over the remaining viable contracts. I didn't need their approval. Their empire built on greed and lies crumbled in front of them legally, publicly, and irrevocably. As I walked out, I felt something I hadn't seen in years. Calm relief. The storm that had followed me since that rainy Tuesday years ago was gone. But I also felt the weight of choices. I could destroy them entirely, humiliate them forever, or I could step away, leave them with the truth, and live my own life untainted. I chose the latter. They lost the company. They lost their influence. But I didn't lose myself. I went back to True Build. Clients, contracts, and employees welcomed me. I built a company based on integrity, not fear. Sometimes at night, I still think about the people who once called themselves my family, and I smile because they taught me everything I needed to know about business, about betrayal, and most importantly, about who I am when no one is watching. AITA, maybe, but I finally realized survival. Revenge and integrity aren't mutually exclusive. And sometimes winning means walking away.